So, you want to pass the B2 First exam, but now you're thinking, oh no, I cannot read. And if that's your problem, then I'm very, very sorry, but I cannot help you. However, what I can do is give you some fantastic and useful tips on how to pass part 1 of the B2 First reading paper. And that really is fantastic. My name is Toby, this is Smash English, and here is everything you need to know about how to pass part 1 of the reading paper of the B2 First Cambridge exam. Okay, so first of all, this is not part 1 of the reading paper because there is no reading paper. The reading paper is called the Reading and Use of English paper. And in this video, we are going to be talking about part 5 of the Reading and Use of English paper. However, this is the first reading exercise in the Reading and Use of English paper. And so we will call it part 1 of the Cambridge B2 First reading paper. Yes? Yes! I recommend spending 30 minutes on the use of English part, so that's parts 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then 45 minutes on the reading part. This will give you 15 minutes for each part of the reading section of the Reading and Use of English paper. And 15 minutes is the perfect amount of time. So then, what do you need to do for part 5 of the B2 First Use of English and Reading paper? Well, first of all, you will be given a text, obviously, and this text will be about 600 to 700 words long. But seriously, don't count the words in your exam, because why would you do that? And that is a massive waste of time. But trust me, it will be about 600 to 700 words long. You will also be given 6 questions, and each question is a multiple choice question. You must choose between A, B, C, or D. Yeah. Oh, and in case you're confused, here is an example.
So, here is the reading. It will be an entire page of your examination paper and will be between 600 and 700 words. And here are the questions, and each one has 4 possible answers.
So we have our text and we have our questions. What is the first thing that we should do? Some will suggest reading the whole text quickly to understand the general idea. However, I don't think this is a good use of your time for part 5. Skim reading a text very quickly to understand the general idea can be great if we need to quickly identify where certain pieces of information are located within a text. However, that's not really what part 5 is asking you to do. We already know where all of the information is contained in part 5 because the questions are in order. And so the answer to question 1 will be in paragraph 1. The answer to question 2 will be after the answer to question 1. The answer to question 3 will be found after the answer to question 2. And yeah, you get the idea. So this really is not asking you to locate information quickly because, well, you already know where the information is located before you've even read the text. So, to be honest, a better strategy would be to read question 1 very carefully, read all the options, and then very carefully read paragraph 1. That's what I do. Anyway, let's look at the type of questions you could come across in part 5. Remember, part 5 isn't really about finding individual pieces of information. Instead, it's more about understanding general ideas. What is the focus? What is the author's intent? And because the questions ask you to focus on intent, atmosphere, emphasis, and tone, we shouldn't really be focusing on individual pieces of vocabulary. And this might all sound very confusing, but don't worry because here is an example.
Question 1, or 31, whatever, is, in the first paragraph, what is Caitlin's main point about the island? And here are the options, A, B, C, and D. Notice the question tells you the answer is in paragraph 1. So skim reading the entire text before answering this question is not going to help you, so don't do it. It's a waste of time. The question is asking you to understand what the writer's, Caitlin's, main point is about the island. This means that Caitlin is probably making many points about the island, and you need to understand what the most important point is. Here is paragraph 1. Pause the video here and see if you can choose the correct response. Now let's look at each possible answer. A. It can be dangerous to try to cross from the mainland. Well, she says there is a vast stretch of tall grasses and brown mud that separates the island from the mainland. Is this an important point? Maybe, but does she mention that this makes it dangerous to cross from the mainland? No, she doesn't. She states that during high tide the water rises half a meter or so above the road and nothing can pass until the tide goes out again. Would this make it dangerous to cross? Well, yeah, probably. But does she say it? No, she doesn't. So we can eliminate A. B. It is much smaller than it looks from the mainland. Caitlin does describe the size of the island here, but she does not say it is any bigger or smaller than it appears from the mainland. She simply gives us the size of the island and nothing more. We therefore can eliminate B.
At this point, you might have noticed that I am underlining parts of the text in relation to different possible answers, and you should definitely do this. It will keep you organised and it will allow you to reflect on whether a particular part of the text matches up well with a particular answer. Another reason is that this is so important for checking your answers at the end. You won't think, oh, I selected A, why did I choose A? Let me read the text again. Oh no, I don't have time, I've lost, I've failed, my life is ruined. Instead, you will say, I chose A. Why did I choose A? Look, it's underlined here, and now I'm rereading it, I see that I was correct. Fantastic. Well done me.
C. It is only completely cut off at certain times. The phrasal verb cut off means to be isolated. We know that the island is isolated at certain times because when there is a high tide and the water rises a half a meter or so above the road and nothing can pass until the tide goes out again a few hours later. This is therefore a possible answer.
But wait, do not move on to the next question yet. Remember, this question is asking us to identify what Caitlin's main point about the island is. Yes, it is true that Caitlin makes the point that the island is cut off at certain times, but this might not be her main point. So let's have a look at D before we get too confident. Yes? Yes.
D. It can be a difficult place for people to live in. I guess an island in which you are isolated from the mainland for certain periods every day may be difficult to live in, but Caitlin does not say that in this paragraph, so no. This means our answer is C.
Wow, good job guys, that was so much fun! So, what have we learned from this example? Number 1, reading the entire text at the beginning of the exercise is not necessary in order to answer the questions. Number 2, underline in the text why you have chosen certain answers, and where you can, underline why you have not chosen other answers. And number 3, read all of the possible answers, A, B, C or D, carefully before choosing your final answer. Obviously. Now let's go straight ahead to question 33. The answer is in paragraph 3, so let's have a look at it.
Caitlin emphasises her feelings of discomfort because she A. is embarrassed that she doesn't understand what her brother is talking about, B. feels confused about why she can't relate to her brother anymore, C. is upset by the unexpected change in her brother's behaviour, or D. feels foolish that her brother's attention is so important to her.
So this question is asking us to identify why the author emphasised something, which is quite similar to our first question, which asked us to identify what the main point was of a paragraph. So, let's see if we can do question 33 together.
A. Well, she is embarrassed. She states she feels embarrassed here, but that does not mean that this is the answer. Does she understand what her brother is talking about? Well, he's acting like an idiot, and he is jabbering like a mad thing. But is this why Caitlin is feeling discomfort? No, I don't think so. Let's go on. B. Can she relate to her brother? No, but does she feel confused about this? She doesn't talk about confusion, and because she doesn't, we can eliminate B. C. So, is the change in her brother's behaviour unexpected? Well, she feels embarrassed and uncomfortable, and she likens her brother's behaviour to someone close to you suddenly acting like a complete idiot. This all suggests that her brother's behaviour is indeed unexpected. However, does she feel upset by it? She says she didn't like the way her brother was ignoring her. Okay, and she says she felt like a stranger in her own car. I think that would feel upsetting. So C is definitely a possible answer, more likely than A or B. D. Does she ever state that she feels foolish? I can't find anything about that. Does she state that her brother's attention is important? Well, she does not like the way her brother is ignoring her, so we can assume yes. But again, she never says she feels foolish, so it cannot be D. This means our answer is C.
And now let's look at a different type of question. Every part 5 of the B2 First Reading and Use of English paper features a question like this. So pay attention. This is very, very important.
In because of that, in line 31, that refers to the fact that A. Locals think it is odd to walk anywhere. B. It is easier for people to take the bus than walk. C. People have everything they need on the island. Or D. There is nowhere in particular to walk to from the island.
Now let's look at the reading. Don't worry, because line 31 will be identified on the page. You don't have to count lines. Again, remember, this part of the exam is not about finding out where pieces of information are located. It is about understanding it, the tone, the atmosphere, the intent. It's not about locating the location of information. No! There are 2 possible types of questions like this in part 5 of the B2 First Reading and Use of English paper. The first one may ask you to identify the meaning of an idiomatic phrase that you definitely will not have heard of before. However, from the context, you need to understand what the author's intent is with its use. And the second type could be like this one, a relative pronoun. And from the context, you need to understand what the relative pronoun means. Anyway, let's take a look at this question together and see if we can do it together.
I can instantly identify the sentence we need. It's here. You don't often see people walking around here, between Hale and Moulton, the nearest town and 30 kilometres away on the mainland. There is nothing but small cottages, farmland, heathland, and a couple of hills. So islanders don't walk because of that. That here refers to there's nothing but small cottages, farmland, heathland, and a couple of hills. What choice does this correspond to? Well, we are not talking about the locals' attitude, so we can eliminate A. There is no mention of the bus, so we can eliminate B. There is no mention of the needs of the islanders. However, there is mention of what there is on the island, and small cottages, farmland, heathland, and a couple of hills sound like nowhere in particular, so we will choose D.
So these are the 3 main types of questions you could get in part 5 of the B2 First Reading and Use of English paper. I cannot teach you to read. However, I can give you strategies and tell you the types of questions you will get when you take your B2 First Cambridge exam. So I hope this has been useful. Let's do some recapping. Number 1, you do not need to read the full text of part 5 before you start answering the questions, and this is because we know where to find all of our answers because the questions are in order. Number 2, the questions will ask you to identify the author's emphasis, intent, tone, the atmosphere, the motivations for somebody's actions, and so you need to understand the general point. You do not need to focus on individual words, and I guarantee there will be some words that you don't understand. If you don't understand a word, then don't focus on it for too long. Just move on. Number 3, underline where you find your final answers and also underline why you are sure that the other options cannot be the answer. This will help you reflect on your answers and will also save you time at the end of the test where you need to check your answers. And finally, number 4, make sure you read the questions carefully and A, B, C and D very carefully before giving your final answer. A question might ask you to identify what the main point was of a paragraph. Maybe the writer did mention B, however it wasn't the main point. The main point was C. However, you chose B because you saw that the writer mentioned B and thought, oh wow, that's the answer, I can go ahead, when actually the main point was C, but you didn't read C properly and so you got it wrong. And that's awful. Really, that's a terrible reason to lose a mark. So yeah, that's my advice for part 5 of the B2 First Use of English and Reading paper. And with that, we are finished. Now you know every single thing you need to know about how to pass part 5 of the B2 First Reading and Use of English paper. Well, maybe not everything you need to know. If you need to learn how to read, then that's a problem. However, I think I've given you some strategies and tips to help you get the mark that you want. If you liked the video, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a comment down below. My name is Toby, and this was Smash English.